Hello, welcome back to another Theory Thursday. Today we're not going over a musical theory concept, but another guitar theory concept. And it's an important one that every guitarist has to consider at some point. And that question is, what strings do I use? How do you know what strings to choose? There's so many options out there. How do you know where to start? Well, let's talk about it. First of all, I got my Mickey Mouse watch on today. I got my brown knit tie on today. And if you've been enjoying these, please like the videos and subscribe if you want to stay in the loop about when new videos come out. I'm sure you already know, every Tuesday we have a new tune come out. Every Thursday we have a new video like this come out about theory concepts, whether it's basic music theory or guitar theory. And then at the end of every month, we have a new solo guitar video that I release. So, without further ado, what strings do you use? Let's talk about it. Okay, so I actually have the same company, Ernie Ball. They package these very similarly. These are acoustic strings, and these are electric strings. How would you know? First of all, they say here, it says acoustic right under the gauge. This says electric right under the gauge. Also, this says it's coated in phosphor bronze. You usually don't see any electric strings coated in phosphor bronze. Usually it's almost always nickel plated. Not to say that there aren't any, and you can mix and match, right? You can get nickel plated acoustic strings as well. But the other thing you'll notice here is the gauge is a lot lower. This is a 10 through 46, whereas this is a 12 through 54. So if you're ever curious, usually it'll say acoustic or electric on here. But if you're really worried about it, look at what it's coated in and look at the gauge. Right? The lower ones are going to be electrics because you don't need a thicker string to get louder because you have your amplifier. Okay, so the lowest string gauge on an electric I've seen go down to is 8, right? People can get 0.008 millimeter thick strings. And that's really light. So we call them light and heavy gauges. That's about the lightest you can find, I've seen. So that's how you read these. I have a couple other ones. These are the most popular, these D'Addario XLs. You see these everywhere. Musicians all over the world use these. These are 10s, 10 through 46, you'll see. And it's probably the most used electric guitar gauge in the world. Depending on your genre, like if you're a metal player, you'll probably go up in gauge because the higher the gauge, the thicker the string. And the thicker the string, the more tension there is. And metal players love to down tune their bottom strings, right? And to be able to do that, you need a pretty taut string to be able to hit those low notes like a bass would, right? Those bass strings, think about it, are thick and higher tension. But 10 is very middle of the road. I don't think you'll have any problem starting off if you're a beginner. If you try them out and it's still too much, you can go down to 9s. I don't know if I'd recommend going down to 8s. It's really easy to go sharp. It's really easy to press too hard. It's almost like it's so light you need to be an experienced player to play them, is how I kind of look at it. So 9s, which again is in millimeters, 0.009, 9s or 10s like these would be great for any solid body electric, okay? Or semi-hollow for that matter. Or hollow body, depending on what genre you're playing. However, if you are going to be playing jazz, this is what you want to be looking for. Now, it also depends on what kind of jazz. Of course, jazz is this overarching genre, like all genres. Like you say country, but you talk about beach country, outlaw country, country rock, right? So jazz is the same thing. There's so many different little niches within jazz. You have fusion, you have swing, right? You have bebop, you have cool jazz. So depending on what you're doing, these are what I love. They're the most middle of the road and probably the most used is these chromes. Now you'll see these are 11s, right? 0.011, that's what that means. up to 50. So that's 0.050. You don't really need the 0 at the end when you're talking measurements, but that's what we call them, because it wouldn't make sense if you said 5. So the notable thing about these ones are they're flat wound instead of round wound, which is everything else we've looked at today. So flat wound, and I'll put a diagram up here, just so it's clear. Basically what happens is a guitar string is a core of something, and then they take something else, a wire, it could be nickel plated, could be phosphor bronze, and they wrap it around that core, and that's where you get those beefy strings. If you look at your low strings, specifically your E, your A, and your D, you can run your finger across it and you're going to be hitting these grooves. That's because whatever they're using to wrap the core with is just another string that's round, right? Like a pencil. And wrapping something that's round around is going to cause little grooves. So where these guys do it differently is, instead of wrapping the core with another piece of round wire, they use flat wire, wrap it around. So when you run your finger across the string, there's no grooves. It's just a flat string. So if you're looking into jazz or any genre, really, if you want a more mellow tone, check out the flat wound. And these guys aren't the only ones that do them. You can find flat wounds in a lot of different companies. But these are the ones I use most of the time. The D'Addario Chromes, and probably the most used flat wounds in the world, really. These guys really have a lockdown on them. So, perfect choice for jazz, blues, and rockabilly players everywhere. That's what it says on the back here. So, when it comes to electric strings, kind of the same as acoustics. You just want to make sure they're 4 electrics, so they're going to be a lot thinner than your acoustic strings. But pretty much every guitar store is going to have them. And I would recommend getting 9s, 10s, or 11s. These are 10s, the most middle of the road. 9s will be a little bit smaller, a little bit easier on your fingers, whereas the 11s are going to be thicker, tighter tension, which means you can get a lower action. So again, it's all personal preference. And then just as a little addition, if you're looking to get into some jazz or blues, or if you just want a more mellow tone, I would recommend looking at the flat wounds. I love these things. I've even put them on my telly before, and it's a great sound. So that's all I got for you today. If you have any questions at all, please put them in the comments or wherever you're watching this video, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I think that's all I have today. So good luck choosing strings. Hopefully you learned something, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye.